All right, we got the 6.7 Cummins. We've talked about air coming into the turbo, air coming out of the turbo into the intercooler, air coming back up to the gatekeeper, the place that is going to be the biggest restriction on letting that air get into the engine and let it breathe properly. We've got the factory intake manifold here, and I know a lot of you are looking at it saying, oh hey, that Banks Monster Ram lines up on the same mounting outline as that factory one. Well, we flipped this thing over, and obviously there are a lot of design characteristics that are inherently different than what he came up with. But the biggest restriction in here is this isn't the full opening. We have this teeny tiny little opening where you have an indentation in the factory casting, and then the backside of it that end up interfering and taking that size that we actually let air in down to about half of what you can visibly see from the outside, which gave you a lot of room for improvement.
It does, a huge amount. And of course, this sits on top of this. So this opening lines up with the heater opening. The heater doesn't occupy full width either.
No, which you can clearly see.
There's a huge difference. And of course, the heater's hanging into the wind. So you not only have a small outlet here, you've got further restriction with the heater hanging into the wind. And of course, this piece here also is in the wind. Not too restrictive, but there's some aftermarket ones that are flat across here. So if you're fixing your heater bolt problem and you put a flat across here, it's taking this, the restriction of the heater groove, and adding more restriction with the bus bar that they put in there. So just pointing that out. And of course, the aftermarket heater bolt setup, who's to say those bolts are better than what you started with? I mean, where's the science on the bolts? So I'm kind of skeptical of that one. You kind of hit it. You kind of showed all the way through. I kind of look at, we were talking earlier about this engine and the air flowing through the whole thing. If it doesn't make air density, it cuts air density. Now, air density is measured by the temperature, you want it as low as possible, and the pressure, you want it as high as possible. This drops pressure. So the compressor and the turbocharger is working against the restriction of this thing. It's like having a throttle that could be wide open, but you're only opening it halfway. So this to me is an air throttling device, along with those fins and that bus bar. So huge. So if you look at these side by side, you guys ought to get the idea. The shape has a tremendous amount to do with the efficiency of this one and the lack of efficiency with this one, because this thing curves around, reverse curves in. So the air that is coming into this outlet, it's throttled right there. It looks like it's open all the way here, but if you look closely, the flow area is right there. The flow area is not from here to here, it's from here to here. See that, guys? So this is worse than it first appears. Why is it like that? It's like that to clear the stock #1 injector line. So I kind of went, you know, I don't want to compromise what we're going to do. We need to do our own injector line. And then we can do what we want. I've seen some guys that do something that try to copy this with no injector line, and they cut right through the casting, hanging stuff in the wind inside, causing a lot of turbulence and back pressure. It was a performance device to begin with. I wanted to do an emissions legal max performance device. This is the last barrier in the airflow path into this Cummins. Cooper, can I borrow that line for a second? Yep. So here we've got the line going to the #1 injector, tucking right into this recess that's provided for it, and going over to the #1 injector. So that clears us beautifully.
And for those of you doing this install, make sure you install this jumper line before you put the intake manifold in, or you'll be pulling it all back off again. You can't tighten it up.
So you do the line first so you can wrench it, to your point. Yeah, and get it properly installed. Then comes this.
Now we get a lot of customers, obviously we're up further north, and it gets a little bit cold in the winters. I know a lot of people, they look at aftermarket intake manifolds, and a lot of them are associated with some sort of grid heater delete.
Yes.
Now you know the benefits obviously of being able to preheat the air in a cold environment to help things get up to temp and aid in that combustion explosion to get that engine going.
With our Army engines, we have to cold start at 40 below, so I'm real familiar with it. And we have to do that with no heater and no block heater.
Oh boy.
So, oh yeah. Yeah, they don't want you drawing a lot of amperage off the battery to cold start the vehicle. So we've perfected a cold start calibration that does that. Here, we're starting with a stock calibration that comes from Cummins. You had a heater and you need a heater. So this comes with a heater. And you've got great distribution off this particular style of heater into this air volume. So as the air flows through during pumping, there's a whole heat dome in here that you're producing with the radiant energy of this guy right here.
We've got a heater element for cold weather start. Got that handled, check. Along with that, obviously comes the alleviation of any concerns about that factory grid heater bolt falling off and causing some sort of catastrophic failure. And with that, you also have this newer plenum cover that lets you relocate the inlet air temp sensor, and you have provisions for that too, depending on what year you have, to allow that harness to reach it.
Yes.
Above and beyond that, your factory throttle valve comes right over, bolts right on, exact same way, as well as the heat shield that goes around that. You have provisions for that. And then your valve on top to allow EGR gases back in.
And then we have
and then to prevent anyone from getting any injury there, you've got some sort of heat shield that
and anything
goes
above it,
that.
like the hood, whatever, that dissipates heat very well. And it looks better.
Looks a lot more finished. You've covered every aspect of the performance side of it and the day-to-day functionality of what the original manufacturer had in mind with heating up your inlet air and allowing for all the provisions of the emissions compliant components. So you've really taken advantage of all the low-hanging fruit that the factory gave you for improving airflow. We've figured out how to alleviate that portion of it. And granted, this can be somewhat of an expensive endeavor for someone in time, but the performance gain vastly outweighs it, and the security, the peace of mind that comes along with knowing that now not only am I allowing cooler air to get into my engine, which allows it to work more efficiently, but I've also alleviated the issue with the factory failure point of that grid heater bolt, which as it's located wants to fall out and drop right into one of the back three cylinders.
And normally number 6.
For some reason, they don't seem to like any of that foreign material to come in there and just kind of disrupt working. So above and beyond it being a performance adder, we also get the improvements of lower
durability,
lower EGTs, everything else, and you've covered all the basis
and
for what anyone would need.
You can't fail what's not there.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
So for someone that relies on their truck for day-to-day use, this is going to drastically decrease any downtime they might have for catastrophic failure alleviations or potentially engine replacements, and add the benefits of performance.
Yes, you get it all. It's a no-lose.
So if you're interested in adding a monster ram to your project, or you have questions about the product, check the link in the description or visit the website, dieselpowerproducts.com.